Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. So on this channel, we are pretty anti-war. We are obviously defend ourselves, that type of thing. But as far as butting our nose in other people's business, we're really not a huge fan of that.
Or like having 4,000 military bases.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm assuming you clicked on this video because maybe you've got some anti-war sentiments too, maybe at different levels and all that. So we've got a quick little test for you to see how anti-war you actually are.
Okay, so Trump was anti-war, right?
That's what I've always heard.
Okay, well, he didn't start any new wars.
Okay.
So give credit where credit's due. I don't care what side of the aisle you are. Okay, so we're talking about a specific incident. On January 3rd, 2020, I don't know where I was going to continue with the 2020 on, Trump ordered a bombing at the Baghdad International Airport of a man named Qasem Soleimani. He's the major general in Iran. He's considered the second most powerful person in Iran.
But he was in Iraq for this event.
Yeah, he was in Iraq, and he was going to meet the prime minister of Iraq. And he was just with his personal security, so there were no civilians around. And so this guy is, from a U.S. perspective, a terrible person, right?
Okay.
He basically was in charge of the IED attacks on the U.S. during the second Iraq occupation. Well, I'll say occupation.
Okay.
Or the occupation of Iraq. I guess the first one wasn't really a very good occupation. So basically, they've given this guy like credit for thousands of casualties, not fatalities, just casualties, And so he's looked by the United States forces as a extreme terrorist.
Okay.
Like very high on the threat list. On their side, he's looked as a very good freedom fighter, so it depends on your perspective. And so basically he was bombed, no civilian casualties. And, there's a lot of dead Americans, soldiers, who, because of this guy, ended up being dead. And so my question is to you, do you agree or disagree with Trump choosing to bomb Soleimani at the Baghdad airport? What do you think? Now, a lot of people are in favor of this. There was a lot of non-Trump people who were in favor of it. The Trump anti-war people were pretty in favor of it. Now, if you remember at the time, kind of the Democrats and stuff said this is a terrible idea because World War III, Iran. Do you remember?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then Iran had shot some missiles randomly near some of our bases in Iraq.
In response.
In response. And then just randomly, there was a plane taking off in Iran. It just went down. I have no idea what that was about. It was like a civilian plane. I'm not really sure. Probably never know. Anyways, but in general, Republicans were on board with this because fighting terror, rah, rah, rah.
Right.
And, the Defense Department and all that. But kind of Democrats are on board with it too, like when he bombed Syria,
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is what do you think about it? Do you agree or disagree? And so now let's talk about if you agree or think it's okay, what that really means.
Okay.
So do you want to put it in perspective or shall I?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. So from our perspective, this was a bad dude, right? And so we said, hey, let's bomb another country at an international airport. They said, wait, you can't do that. He's a good dude, right? So we're talking about perspective here. So let's say the Middle East, non-Israel Middle East, who do they think is a bad dude? President Obama. They think he's a bad dude. Just killed so many civilians. Weddings, funerals, didn't matter. Just massacred. I mean, the dude's a war criminal. Just 100% of people have to agree, yeah, he's kind of a war criminal, Just killed all the civilians. So you might say, well, you like Obama. Okay, whatever. I'm not talking about your perspective or my perspective. I'm talking about their perspective.
Right.
So if you say the killing of Soleimani is justified, then you're also saying that a Middle Eastern country could drop a bomb when Obama is getting off an airplane at a U.S. international airport or in Europe or wherever, as long as there's no civilian casualties and it's just his secret services, and they could bomb him and kill him because he's a war criminal. So what I'm trying to point out here is that if you're saying it's okay for us to bomb Soleimani, you don't understand what you're thinking at all, unless you say it's just a free-for-all. Because if it's a free-for-all, we could just say who don't we like? Oh, the newly elected, we're just going to say Prime Minister of Britain, just a new one next year that gets elected. And we're like, we don't like him. We're going to call him a war criminal. Let's bomb him.
Right.
It's insane that we bombed Soleimani.
Right.
When we had first discussed this, I said, hey, well, I mean, technically, if we had special forces hidden at the thing and we nabbed him and brought him to The Hague for war crimes and then he was executed, like, you know, there's like different processes you could do that's not just like assassinating someone at the airport. If you're American, I mean, well, it just depends. If you like the Constitution, you might think that due process is a good idea, which means you don't just randomly execute people.
Right.
Because that's a slippery slope. Once you start saying you can randomly execute people.
Or committing acts of war.
Right.
To take them out.
Right. And then you kind of want to keep your due process, so you kind of want to protect other, even though they're not, this is not an American we're talking about.
Right.
But this is definitely not a war situation, you know? I mean, so what do you think about it?
Yeah, when you proposed this idea, I'd never thought about this. And this is one of those things that, you know, he challenged my thinking and, you know, opened my eyes and like, that is insane that we would do that. Because, I mean, like you said, you look at it in reverse. No, that's crazy.
Right.
And it's, you know, my reaction was that, as well as the only reason we do that is because we're a bully and we can get away with it because they're not going to attack us. I mean, logistically, it's incredibly hard to attack the United States because of where we're at, but also we're the big dog, you know, on the block or whatever.
Right.
And
yeah. Because if you don't think about it a lot, it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, he's a bad dude. Cool. Whatever. You're like, I mean,
Yeah.
It's not a war. Like, it's like, you know, but it's not. And so imagine a scenario where they said they're going to strike back. So just imagine, okay? They sneak into a United States airport and they put a bomb in a baggage car or something like that, right? And Obama's walking on the red carpet off of his, you know, whatever. And it blows up and kills him. What would be the response of the corporate media and the American people?
kill them all.
They would say war, rah, rah, rah.
Right.
They've got a camp where they train that dude in something to stand.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Like, it depends on their political objectives, what natural resources they want to steal, how many American soldiers they're just willing to die, who are going in with good faith, the American soldiers. You know, the actual soldier on the ground thinking that they're doing something good. But I fear that you might fall for it and think, oh, this is a terrorist attack. It's completely unprovoked. Like, how dare they? But you look at all the terrorist attacks that have ever happened on American soil, and they're really
questionable.
Well, they're really like retaliatory.
Okay.
But they're put to you like, we've never hurt anyone in the Middle East. Why would they attack these towers? Like, this is just random hatred for us. It's not. We're breeding just millions of people who despise America.
Right.
When you bomb that wedding, there's hundreds of relatives and distant relatives who now say, I thought they were coming to free us. I hate them. Right. And a small percentage of those pick up a gun. You know, like a small percentage.
Totally.
But in general, you're just breeding massive hatred everywhere we go, supporting Al-Qaeda in Yemen right now. Like, you don't even know where Yemen's at on a map. Maybe you do. Good for you if you do. But what I'm saying is, we haven't seen the Yemenis backlash, but we will decade, 2 decades from now, because there's all these people growing up to hate the U.S. And this is one of the reasons why we're anti-war. Like, we don't want people to die, right? We don't want to interfere with the political processes of other countries. If they're going to have a feud in, say, Syria and say, who should be in power? It's on them. It's not on us. It's not on Russia. And people are like, well, it has to be on us because if it's not us, it's someone else. It's wrong, you know?
Right.
So you're saying let's go be wrong because Russia's going to be wrong and interfere in Syria?
Yeah.
Also, it's not in our sphere of influence. So like if Israel says, hey, we want to do something about this because it's, yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, go for it.
And if Russia says, hey, we need to do something about this because you're right there, or Europe or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the same way, if there was a big conflict in Guatemala, I'd be interested in us looking into it because they're our neighbors, you know, like we're over here. But I would look down on China, Russia, European Union.
Going to Guatemala.
Yeah, right. Because we're over here in our sphere of influence. And then I would look for a peaceful solution, of course. I wouldn't just say blow them all up or whatever, you know.
And it's also, you kind of hit on it before looking at the situation if it was reversed. If Iraq was occupying the United States and had military bases all over, and we had someone who was doing guerrilla warfare and fighting back against the Iraqi invaders, would the people be for or against him? They would be for him.
Right.
He's helping the Iraqi or the American people at that point.
Right.
So from their perspective, that guy was probably considered to be a good guy, right?
Right. Unless they're saying that the nation building unless they believe in the nation building of America. Because in Iraq, the Iraq occupation is all about nation building. Just like Afghanistan was. Afghanistan's a complete failure. So I'm sure that there's all these people who were like, man, they made schools and roads. I think I believe in them. And now they're gone.
Right.
Now they say, no, I'll just burn all the flags if I even had enough money to buy a flag or food for my kids. You know what I mean? But I mean, in Iraq, there could be some people who believe, it just depends how long it takes for it to collapse and
right.
Return to what it was. Because we have no business there. This is not our culture. Like, hey, I got a political system for you. Use a European political system.
No, it's not their.
Right. And it's different than them volunteering to, because if I could just tell a history story,
sure.
There was a point where Japan, I believe it was in the late 19th century, and they said, oh, we want to be super powerful, And so what they did is they hired people to come in from Europe, and they said, make our government. You want us to wear wigs? We'll wear wigs, like whatever it is. They made a parliament, they did this, that, and they just literally chose to copy everything European. Do you know what happened with that?
I'm guessing it didn't go well.
It went terrific because they chose it.
Oh, okay.
So the Iraqis didn't choose it. They chose the people. They're like, okay, our culture's amazing in Japan, this and that. But long run, we're not going to do it unless we militarize and become a first world country. But here's what happened. Early 20th century, they had a war over there in the Pacific Ocean with Russia, a great power, and they defeated them over some islands. Most embarrassing thing that ever happened to a European power. Because a European power had never been defeated in a war by a non-European power, including Russia as a European power, because that's how they consider it back there. And of course, the United States would have been considered a European power. But they did that because they chose this path for their people.
Interesting.
As a people, they chose. As a government, everybody's like, okay, we're on board. If this is the effective strategy to get to, naval superiority and et cetera, et cetera. But in these other countries, we're not.
But it's being forced down the people in the Middle East. If they want to live how they live,
right?
Who cares?
And how would you take it if somebody rolled up with all their tanks and stuff and said, "You guys are dummies. Y'all don't know how to run politics. You don't know how to run your economy. Let us teach you everything,
right?
Including jumping jacks." You remember the jumping jacks?
I've seen the videos. It's crazy,
and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. But you're bringing something completely foreign, though,
right?
Because I'm sure there's things that they do.
Totally.
We just don't know,
right?
So. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting way to look at it. So maybe in the future we can challenge ourselves to, when we hear about the assassinations and little strikes and all that, wonder, should we really be doing that? Do we have any business being there? All that type of thing.
Anything where we cause the death of anyone in a foreign country, just immediately light up all the red flags.
Right.
You might end up agreeing with that action. You might end up, but you should just be like,
whoa, hold on.
Yeah. And then look for resources involved, look for, or look for, like in this situation, because he was the second commander in Iran, look for, okay, are we doing the political destabilization of Iran so we can bring in a democracy, Okay. And it didn't turn out to be the case on this one, but that would be my immediately second in command.
Okay, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? And they have had all types of protests and then killing the protesters, like in Iran since then, but I don't know if it's related.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.
Okay, are you ready for the real reason why Trump assassinated Soleimani? Now, since we filmed the previous, we haven't posted it yet, and I've now understood it. So here's what happened. China just got involved and to help make a peace treaty between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
This is currently in 2023.
This just happened a couple days ago.
Okay, in March.
And when understanding that story, I then understood why this guy was assassinated, Soleimani. So here's the backstory on it. 2016, Saudi Arabia kills through execution, like criminal execution, a sheikh or somebody from Iran. The Iranians are furious. They start protesting. The protest at the Saudi Arabian embassy in Iran gets so intense that they have to remove their embassy and evacuate. High tension since 2016. in the Middle East because of this whole situation. We already discussed this, but who is the country that, me and you already discussed this, but who is the country that benefits from a destabilized Middle East?
Israel.
Israel. There's only one country on the planet that benefits from it. If you're anti-war, what do you want? What do you want as an anti-war person in the Middle East?
Well, no war. You want peace.
Peace.
Yeah.
So we want these two countries to be peaceful. There's only one country and people on the entire planet that do not want peace, and it is Israel. And so what happens is Qasem Soleimani is the second in command major general in Iran, and he's sent to Saudi Arabia to make a peace treaty between the two countries, lands in Iraq, gets blown up by Trump and assassinated in order to stop the peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, because the United States is not working on the best interest of the American people. America first, right? Nope. Working at the best interest of our masters, Israel.
Right.
Because the United States doesn't benefit from this. You don't benefit. The Middle East doesn't benefit. This is going to lead to suffering and death. One people, one country benefit, and that's Israel.
Is it possible that Trump was told, hey, this is the guy that runs their IED program, we have a chance to get him, and that he actually didn't know the real reason?
It's absolutely possible. Jared Kushner, a religious Jewish fellow, his stepson,
Ivanka's.
what is it, stepson?
Yeah, stepson.
Stepson, may have told him. But when you make that decision, if you've got these people who have an absolute foreign allegiance not to America that are in your inner circle advising you, and you let them advise you to help a foreign country destabilize a region, and you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's up to you to do the research. You're going to make the call.
Totally.
He should be talking to the military. He should be talking to the CIA, even though Trump never worked with the CIA because he distrusted them, which puts him at a disadvantage, but an advantage not to get abused by the CIA. Anyways, the buck stops with him.
Totally.
So I don't really care whether he was like, this is just the IED guy.
Yeah, it's always just been a thought process in my head of, is he intentionally doing these things, or does he just have is he inept at actually picking his inner circle and then he just blindly follows their suggestions?
Okay. And to me, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
When you're looking at President Trump as a leader, say a future leader in 2024, is he going to do what's in America's best interest? Or is he going to surround himself with Jared Kushner's, which I think Jared Kushner might be out in the future, I'm not sure, and then do things at the behest of a foreign country to destabilize a region and create a more warlike scenario?
Totally.
So the funny thing here is that the U.S. ends up being the bad guys because we're helping the bad guys who are Israel, and we're destabilizing the region. And then do you know who the good guys are?
I'm sure Israel, because they're the
No,
victims.
the real good guys. You're being so sarcastic over there. The real good guys are China. Because the communist Chinese came into the Middle East and made peace. Do you know why? They don't care one lick about Israel. They don't have any religious Jewish advisors in the Chinese cabinet. They don't care. They're like, okay, so what's best for our trade in the region? Peace. So we're going to go make peace. And we understand that the American government is slaves to Israel. We don't care about any of that. Because how are you going to talk bad about us? Peace. And do you know what the next move China is preparing for right now?
No idea.
Going to Russia to talk to Putin.
Oh, interesting.
So in whatever, April of last year of 2022, we sabotaged the peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. Why? Because we want war. We want our defense contractors to be building weapons, to be siphon off American resources to send there so that this small group of people gets wealthy. What is China going to do? I don't know the answer to that. But I'm going to guess they're going to try to broker peace.
Yeah.
And what's happening is they're leveraging increasing power in all these regions in the world because they're doing the right thing. And I'm not a fan of the communists.
Right. Definitely not.
I'll give you credit when communists do good things, though.
Sure.
But it's just so obvious that we are the bad guys, and not me and you.
Right. The government.
The government, the system.
Mm-hmm.
And our system is so much worse than the communist Chinese, which is so embarrassing.
And depressing. And yeah.
It's terrible. And so then this is just the true story, and it's just terrible.
Definitely. So hope you enjoyed this kind of extra look into it. It blew my mind when he told me this, that he wasn't even sure if we wanted to make this clip. And it's 100% relevant and 100% needs to be said.
And so embarrassing.
Right.
So embarrassed.
So anyway, hope you enjoyed this insight. See you next time.